Right, so here's 5 tips for driving in Scotland. Driving in Scotland can be very daunting for people because the roads are very narrow, the speed limits are pretty fast. Most of these roads where your wing mirrors are practically touching the side, the speed limit is national speed limit, which is 60 miles an hour. And of course, you are driving on the right side of the car, which is something you might not be used to. Tip number 1 is drive with confidence. There's a lot more accidents caused by tourists driving too slowly and dithering around than by people driving too fast. Because what happens is other people take a risk trying to overtake you, and that's where you end up having an accident. So I'm not saying for a second that you all have to drive round like you're doing a rally stage, don't get me wrong. But if it's beautiful scenery and you want to pause and have a really good look at it, and I can 100% encourage you to do so, but find somewhere safe to stop the car and look around. Okay? Do not just drive around at 20 miles an hour down a mountain road, because someone's going to come steaming up behind you and crash straight into the back of you. Drive at a reasonable speed and pull over somewhere safe, not in a passing place, in a parking place, and get out of the car, have a beautiful look, take photos. We love that, but just don't drive along too slowly. Tip number 2 is look way ahead. Most of the single track roads have regular passing places. Always pay attention to where the traffic's coming in the distance and how far you are from a passing place. If you're coming up to a passing place and there's a car half a mile away in the distance, you might be best off stopping in that passing place and waiting for them. Because if you're both because if you and the other car are both a quarter of a mile from a passing place, then one of you is going to have to reverse for a quarter of a mile, which, to be honest, is not a good or a safe situation. Tip number 3, look out for wildlife. Just on this drive I've been doing today, I've had a deer nearly run out in front of me, I've had a sheep stood in the middle of the road, and numerous birds fly out or walk out in front of me. Now, all of those can damage your car. Swerving for any of those into a tree could kill you. So be aware that they could walk out in front of you at any minute. Obviously, you do not want to hit anything. It's going to cause damage. It's not good. If it is a choice between hitting a deer and hitting a tree, my recommendation to you is hit the deer. Tip number 4, now this is an unusual one, but it's certainly one that works for me, is I try to avoid using full beam on my headlights as much as I can, because I feel it ruins your night vision. I think you're better off driving with normal headlights and only going up to full beam if you really need to. Then when someone's coming the other way and you don't have to dip your headlights, and your eyes become more sensitive and you can see better at night. These roads are very, very dark at night. There's no street lights. There's, in fact, no light sources sometimes for miles and miles. To me, that's wonderful, because it means you get a beautiful blanket of stars. But when it comes to driving, it can be a little bit disconcerting sometimes for people. Last tip, and probably the most important one: always have some supplies in your car at all times. The absolute minimum things that you need at all times are a blanket, fresh water, and a torch. There's other things you could add to that, like some food, warning triangle, first aid kit, raincoat, waterproof shoes, because if for some reason your car breaks down or you get it stuck somewhere, or if it snows or something like that, you need to keep warm, you need to keep hydrated, and you need to keep alive. As a second part of that, if you do get stranded in the mountains in your car, unless you can see where you're trying to get to, like a farmhouse which is really near to you, stay with the car. You're more likely to get lost, fall in a ditch and die walking than you are waiting in your car. As long as you've got some water, as long as you can keep warm, you can probably stay alive in your car for days. In the Scottish winter, walking at night, realistically, you might only have hours. The last thing I want to do is worry people about driving in Scotland. It's a perfectly safe, perfectly beautiful, perfectly nice place to drive. But please be aware of the terrain, be aware of the customs, be aware of the speed limits. And if you've never driven a right-hand drive car on the left-hand side of the road, have a really good practice somewhere safe before you attempt driving a mountain road. Because the last place you want to forget which side of the road you're driving on is halfway up a mountain with a logging truck coming headlong towards you. So have a nice practice in the car park of the airport or whatever first, feel comfortable, get good at it, then go and enjoy your road trip. I hope that's helpful. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.